Hello and welcome to the United Community Channel. My name is Jack and this is your latest episode of the United Community Podcast. We're back after a break last week. There wasn't much to talk about really last week, was there? But we've got plenty to talk about tonight. Guys, we're going to, of course, be talking about the breaking news, as you can see in the title of the video. Victor Osimhen to United is off, according to David Ornstein. It was never on, supposedly. But we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk, of course, about Cunha to Manchester United. We've got some links as well with some young players. Vivek seems to be doing some good work in the background in terms of identifying some of these players. So we'll talk a little bit about the influence that he has as well. We're going to discuss, guys, also the strategy by Ineos. Are we getting too many young players? What's the plan going forward? And of course, we will look back on an amazing night last Thursday night because, besides the match reaction, we haven't kind of spoken about it since the dust settled. But as always, guys, please do smash a like in the video. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. If you're listening back on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, give us a 5-star review. It helps us out an awful lot. And get your comments in, as always. But look, let's start, guys, straight away with the breaking news. It's only coming out in the last maybe half an hour or so, and it's to do with Victor Osimhen. David Ornstein has been speaking on NBC Sports, and he has said that pretty much that Osimhen is not a priority for Manchester United in the summer, regardless of some of the reports that have come out over the last few days. He has said a number of different things. I'll run through what he said. He's not on the agenda by Manchester United. Manchester United's priority this summer is attack. He says Matheus Cunha is the main focus for the number 10 position and Liam Delap is the top striker target. The finances are in place for United to do the deals they want to do, and it will not depend on European football or sales. So big statement from David Ornstein. Chris, I'll start with you. You're on my direct right or left. I still don't know what it is. You know what I mean? Reverse camera, left or right, doesn't matter. You're beside me. What's your thoughts on Victor Osimhen? You know, you're maybe spoken off air there a little bit skeptical. Is it, United maybe playing a little bit of a game in terms of, trying to stir up some, interest elsewhere? What's your thoughts on the whole Osimhen deal being off?
I think it's a mistake. I think they need to pursue it. I think it needs to be pursued to the point of, if you get hard, concrete numbers and they don't work, then I can say, okay, let's call it off. And, that's not going to work for us at this moment, because I've also, I've read some reports that, that maybe we take the Real Madrid approach and say, hey, just run out your contract and we'll get you on a free next summer. Because it's if Napoli's going to play hardball and say, we want Garnacho, we want this, we want that, or we're sticking to this solid number. And again, the reports are what he wants as per week, what is it, like 350 grand per week? And that's not something Ineos is willing to do. It goes back into that analogy. How much is it worth to get a clinical striker? Is that the guy that you pay? Is that the guy that you pay according, right in line with Bruno Fernandes, that's been at the club for however many years? What is it, 7-8 years now? And, is that worth bringing in that one guy? And is that one guy going to put you in the top 4 at that point, and challenging for league titles and stuff, which, I'll be honest, I think he can, because he's only 24, going to be 25. He's not an old player, just like Cunha, he's coming into his prime, and I think I think it's a mistake to not pursue it. I'm not opposed that if they get concrete numbers and the numbers don't work or the numbers are too high, then we walk away from it. But to not even pursue it or to get that information, then I think that's a problem. And I think that's where I'm upset with it at that point. You're not even going to find out because how do you know that if maybe they're willing to take less just to get rid of them, or to unload them? Because if you don't pursue it, you don't know. And then all of a sudden someone walks in and says, all right, we'll give you 40 million for him. And they're like, all right, fine, we're going to get rid of him.
Yeah, absolutely.
But ultimately, I think if anything were to happen, that deal is going to be a late transfer window deal.
And I don't think that's something we can really afford either. I think, given how Ruben Amram, I suppose he wanted to take the job in the summer because he wanted a full preseason. You would expect him to want as many players in as possible, as quickly as possible. Oisín, I mean, by the looks of things, Wilcox is having a big say in the background. If we're talking about going from Osimhen to Delap, obviously he's a big fan of Delap. He's, by all accounts, pushing this deal because he knows him. He worked with him at Manchester City. What's your thoughts on the whole situation around potentially not getting Osimhen, ending up with Delap, if that's fair to say? Do you think it would be enough, or what's your thoughts in general?
Well, I'm not surprised with Osimhen. I mean, I'm over the transfer window already. We're being linked with everybody, and it's already got to that point where we're peak saturation, who we're going to sign, and we're going to sign nobody. I'm not surprised with Osimhen. I don't know, does he? No, I would like Osimhen there. I think he's the striker that we need. I'll come back to what we said a couple of weeks ago. How much say is Amram having in this? Yes. I would imagine if Amram had his choice, he wouldn't want Delap. He'd want Osimhen. I would think. No, I'm not in his head, obviously, clearly, but I think he'd want Osimhen over Delap. I mean, the fine point of your question there is Delap is a huge step down from Osimhen. Okay, he's 22. He's got a room to grow. But we have a 22-year-old who's not doing anything in the team. What's to say that Delap is going to be any different? I would be extremely disappointed if Delap was brought in as our striker, because I don't see him as a striker. I see him as number 10 or a 9.5 or whatever. We need a striker. We need an out-and-out, someone who's going to sit in the box, edge of the box. And that's not Delap. That's Osimhen for me. And if we're not going for Osimhen, we need to go for someone similar in both build, similar in terms of stats. And as Chris said earlier, you're going to pay for them. So if if we're holding out for money and bargains, you're not going to get those for a 30-goal-a-season striker. You're not. Unless, I mean, we're hearing with all the deals, swap deal perhaps with Watkins, Ben's buddy there. Ben is playing Agent Ben in the background, hoping to get a swap for Rashford. Again, is he going to get us 30 goals a season? I don't think so. Is he not number 9? Again, I'm not sold. And I don't think we can go through a season playing a false 9. I just don't think we can. We have a -4 goal difference now. -5 goal difference now after being beaten at the weekend. That is absolutely woeful. Absolutely woeful. And it's not going to change with Delap. I'm sorry.
And I think it's so frustrating when you see the fact that everybody and their grandmother knows the issues in this Manchester United team, and it's the fact that we're not scoring enough goals.
Yeah, we've shored up the defense as much as we can. Okay, Onana behind the defense is still questionable, but I mean, if we were scoring at the other end, a lot of Onana's mistakes would be negated. As in, they wouldn't be costing us as many points because we'd have someone at the other end who's able to knock it in. So they may not be as glaring.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And we've said it so many times, haven't we, this season, that, if the chances that fell to us in games were just taken, then, we would be quite comfortable in games, and, losing games late on and so on and so forth.
There was one Sunday where Highland was, I think he was on his heels. It was a ball across the box by Delap, and he just couldn't get to it. He was on his heels that split second. He's not, if that was Osimhen, that's in the back of the net because he's on his toes. He's anticipating. We just don't have that.
Yeah.
But I mean, but you couple that with we don't have a clinical number 10 either. And I think when you're talking about bringing Cunha in, that's going to be a plus, because the one thing you notice about Cunha is that he takes his chances. If he's in and around the top of the box, he's shooting, and he's not trying to do the Hollywood goal and put it at the top corner or anything like that. He places the ball and he puts the ball in the back of the net. So, I mean, it's kind of a give and take. But at the same time,
I contrast that, Chris, with Garnacho. He's at the top of the box and he's shooting, and we're complaining about it.
Yeah, but he's terrible at it. I mean, there's a difference. And I understand what you're saying there, but every time we talk about Garnacho, the ball's going in Rose Ed most of the time, or he's not getting a clean strike on the ball. It's a far cry from a player that like Cunha that I'll defend Cunha in the point that, he stayed at Wolves. He kept Wolves up because if you take Cunha out of a team in January, Wolves is going down. So, and Cunha is scoring goals. And that's the difference. Like, Garnacho's at the top of the box and he has chances. He just doesn't know how to finish them yet. Where you insert Cunha, if you put Cunha in for Garnacho, he's finishing chances. Now, are we going to go from a -4 goal differential to like a plus 13? -5 to a plus 13? No, but I think we're going to be we're going to be well far into the plus column with just Cunha, even with Højlund, because I think Cunha can finish there. Like, our problem right now is our number 10s. I mean, only you take Bruno out because, Bruno's not been playing the 10 all that much since January. You put a solid number 10 in there, and then you're going to be scoring more goals, even with Højlund there. Or balls are going to be on the net, so maybe Højlund can get tap-ins and this, that, and the other. But I just think, and I agree, is Delap should he be our answer? No, I'm sorry. I mean, like, he's a good player. And like I said off camera, he makes very good runs. He's very active. I don't like you said, Oisín, Højlund's on his heels and not making the run. Delap's better at making the runs. Is he as good as Osimhen? No, he's not, but he's better at it. Like, he'll make a direct run to the near post to try to get there and everything like that. So, he's very direct in what he does. So he's better, but like you said,
I think an awful lot of it an awful lot of the pressure of scoring for Manchester United has to come into this as well. It is a big difference having to score goals for Ipswich than it is for Manchester United.
That's why I need a top class striker.
Exactly. Well, Ben, what's your opinion on it? Obviously, look, you've mentioned Ollie Watkins a good few times, and look, I really like Ollie Watkins as well, but I don't think he kind of fits that, maybe the age bracket that Ineos are looking at. But what's your thoughts on the striker situation at the moment? Because it is one that Ineos have got one chance at this, really. And I think we get a striker in the summer and he doesn't score goals. I think Ruben Amorim's job is very, very much in trouble next season, because if we can't score goals, we won't win games. Yeah,
exactly. Well, it's like you say, Ineos should be looking at it and thinking, we've got an age bracket, but we need a goal scorer. Let's just go and get one. It's not going to change the team fully, is it? But like you say, we need somebody to put the ball in back of the net.
Yeah.
If it's not Osimhen, it's got to be somebody else, that caliber of player that we need.
So let me ask you the question: who would you, if they're about the same price, because their release clauses are very similar, now their wages would be different. Would you rather this season coming into summer? Would you rather sign Cunha or Osimhen?
Yeah, I'd probably go for Osimhen.
Yeah.
I'd probably go for Osimhen. Now, again, look, I know wages are too much. You know what I mean? Wages are too much. If it is going to be 300 plus grand a week, because what's going to happen is you find yourself in the whole Sanchez situation again. Every Tom, Dick and Harry is going to show up at the front door looking for a raise because Victor Osimhen is on 350 grand a week if he comes to United. And it completely destroys the wage structure for the next 5 or 6 years again, And it might not be the players that are there this season, but, if Patrick Dorgu goes on and scores 11 goals next season as a wing back, all of a sudden he's going, I'm only on 40 grand a week. I want 200 grand now. You're going to go, what do we have to do?
It's where you've got to be clever, though, isn't it? This is what I said it before, Anton. This is where you give them the low wage and you say, you're a top goal scorer. Go and score your goals and we'll give you a bonus.
Yeah.
I don't think I think Delap's that player that you can say that to and he'll take that deal. But I don't think Osimhen, at where he's at in his career, I don't think he's going to do that. And the same thing goes for, like, if we did do this idea of a swap deal between Watkins and Rashford, I don't think Watkins takes that either, because Watkins is going to want a payday as well, even though he's going to be approaching 30 at that point. And I'm not opposed. I mean, here's the thing. I'm not opposed if we take Ollie Watkins, that's fine, but only on 2 years, maybe 3 at the most, because where he's at age-wise. I mean, I agree we need a clinical striker, someone that can be older and maybe can show Højlund how to play. It's a lot of it depends on, if we even bring in Delap, are we keeping Højlund? So you're gonna have Højlund and Delap? Like, that's the part that I'm a little Like, what do you do with Hoyland at this point? You know, like,
would there be the option then? Oisín, I'll go to you on this. Would there be option then of, say, if Delap comes in and Cheeto is the understudy, or is that, are you banking too much on youth there?
I mean, Cheeto's 17 years of age. He's not going to get too many games next year. He's not. He might get a few league games, maybe a couple of cup games, maybe a couple of 15 minutes here and there. But he's not going to be the player that you can rest your Delap in a game, a meaningless game. If Delap comes in, I think Hoyland goes. But I think what they'll do then is they'll use the Hoyland money to get someone
worse than Delap.
well, maybe a 1 year 20 mil kind of striker as a backup, like what's his name? Who do we have on loan there? Igolo. You know, no, not Igolo, but someone of that kind of ilk.
I'd just go out and get Cavani again. You know what I mean? I just still think he'd do it.
But I don't think United are going to get much into the plus column, as Chris put it, if we have Delap, Hoyland, and Cheeto as our 3 choice number 9s. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
well, Chris, talk to me a little bit then about Cunha, all right? And we'll get away from the striker side of it for a minute because, look, obviously we all have our priorities when it comes to striker. And again, I will continue to say it. If Delap comes, I hope to God he scores 30 goals next season. You know, it would be amazing. I still would be a little bit underwhelmed and I would be worried for Ruben Amorim's future. But when we're talking about Cunha then in the number 10, obviously, look, this guy wants to play for Manchester United. It's great to hear that he's willing to sign for United, even without Champions League football, which goes to show maybe the work ethic that he has and, you know, how much he wants to play for the club. The big question mark here is the £62.5 million release clause. And I think it's quite clear that going for Cunha at that price, even though it looks like we'll probably pay a little bit more than the release clause and look to break down the installments a little bit. We've done the same with Xerxes, I think it was, wasn't it, last year? But it's quite clear then, in my eyes, that the number 10 position probably is the priority more so than a striker. If we're going to spend 60-something million on a number 10 position and 30 million on a striker, you know, is that fair to say that the priorities have shifted? Or are we saying, no, look, it's probably going to be 15 million a year over 4 years and that's why striker is still the number 1 choice? But Cunha, what do you think?
I love him. I mean, I love the idea of him. I mean, I love him as a player. I mean, I think he's like the term that you used earlier in some of your reels and stuff like that. He's a maverick. He's the guy that's going to yell at you. He's the guy. He's going to bring the edge that you need up top, because I think that's the thing that we lack, is that the edge of, well, if you guys aren't going to do it, I'm just going to go score, because we don't have that. Like, and I think that's what he brings. And I think coupled with that, you know, and I think we have to look at it. And I tried to do a little bit of research. I got pulled away a little bit, but Cunha has done well with young striker, because you got to remember, Wolves has Strand Larsen there. He's not an established striker. Strand Larsen's had a pretty good season so far. Not great, but good for as young as he is. So I think Cunha's a player. I think we overlook the fact that how good of a player he is, that he can put people in the right spots. He can make you better. And I think that's the thing, is that he's going to make someone better. You know, I think he's that guy that in and around, he can play in tight spaces. He's a power dribbler. He doesn't, you know, he's not finesse. He's not always going to take the ball and turn away and go away from goal like a lot of our players do. He's going to go after him. He's going to go at you. He's going to do that kind of thing where, you know, it's an important, I think that's important for us, because he's going to be forward thinking first. And, you know, and then if it doesn't work, then we come back at that point. Yeah. So I think that's an important thing. And I mean, but I like the edge that he brings, you know, because I think that's what we need up top. I mean, even if we had Amad Diallo up there, Diallo's not that edgy. I mean, he goes after players, but he's not that edgy guy. He's not going to get in someone's face. I think Cunha's that guy. Like, Cunha's the guy that brings the attitude to the front line. And, you know, and I think that he could make, if we stick with Hoyland, this is a hypothetical, Could he make him better? Yes. Is he going to be a 30-goal scorer? I don't think so, but I think he can make him better. I think he's going to be a player that's going to be able to play little slip balls in through, and he's going to – the spaces that he creates by dribbling and his movements are going to free up a lot of stuff where we're not so stagnant up top, because I really like him as a player. So, like we talked about, like you said earlier, the funds are there for the Delap Cunha deal. So you look at the reverse. So if we, instead of buying Cunha, we bought Osimhen at 63, because that's about what his release clause is or whatnot. So then you have to go out and you have to buy a cheaper number 10 option, whether that be a Ryan Cherky or someone else that's, 20 to 30 million. So, what do you want to do with that? How do you want to, because you can't buy both. You can't spend $125 million on two players. And I get that. So it's like, I think the 10 role is more important than the actual striker role. There, yeah. Everybody giving him crap, but he does. The gesture that he made to the United fans when he was coming off in the game and everything like that. But isn't that what you want? You want the edgy type player, because Cantona was like that.
Yeah,
when
absolutely.
he played against you, he went after. I mean, so that's what you want.
You've got to go and back it up, though, and absolutely, I agree with you. But
he scored 2 goals in 2 matches.
Yeah, true. Yeah, absolutely. But on Osimhen, on the Cunha situation, look, he seems to tick all the boxes. He's playing for a team that plays the exact same formation that we're playing at the moment, so he'll slot into Ruben Amorim's system quite well. He's able to create goals. He's able to score goals. He can play in an awful lot of positions. He can play deeper. He can play as a 9. He can play, as one of the 2 number 10s. Surely we're getting a good player.
Yeah, but I'm looking at, and I'm just playing devil's advocate here, just to purely annoy Chris. But we have, how many more number 10s do we need? How many number 10s do we have at the club at the minute? Just a quick sum that I did. We got Menu, Bruno, Mount, Ahmad, Garnacho. Then we have Anthony coming back, Rashford coming back, and Sancho coming back. Do we need any more number 10s at the club? I don't think so. I think our priority this year has to be a striker. And if we are getting Cunha for 62.5, and the lapse release clause is 30 million, now they've been relegated, that's 92.5 million. That gets you a hell of a lot of goals up front. I would be using all that money for a top tier striker, because that's what we need. We've got what? We got 8 number 10s who can play there. We don't need any more. Menu, Bruno, Mount, Ahmad, Garnacho, Anthony, Rashford, Sancho. They're all number 10s.
Sancho's not coming back. Rashford's not coming back. So now you're already down to 6. Bruno doesn't play the 10.
Okay, so we still have 6 number 10.
Okay, and Ahmad, then you take Ahmad out, and then that's going to be, he's going to play right wing back as long as playing the 10. Yeah. And Mount, Mount's played 20 minutes in 5 games.
But we have no idea how the preseason is going to go. We could spend 62.5 million, and then Amorim could say, well, actually, I prefer Mount and Main as my number 10s.
Yeah. Let me ask you this then, Osimhen. If Cunha comes in, do you think Garnacho goes?
Yeah, I think he has to. I think we've got to make room for Cunha. If Cunha comes in, we have to make room somewhere. Okay, look, Sancho and Rashford remain completely facetious. They're not going to be there next year. I just wanted to royal present.
Thank you, Osimhen. I appreciate that.
and look, all being said and done, Anthony won't be there next year. Please God.
No. And I agree with that. And
but if Cunha comes in, we still have to make room. So there's still 5 players on United's books ahead of him who will play number 10 or who can play number 10. So one will have to go.
You don't think Cunha is better than any of those there?
Oh, yeah, but we still have to make room for them somehow.
No, we're not. Yeah, so Garnacho's gone and Mount's going to go. There's room.
But you heard the question, and I was asking the question. Just get in your lane and stay back for a second.
Go on, then.
The question I was asked was, is Garnacho gone? And I just said yes.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one, because as much as I like him, don't get me wrong, I do like him as a player and everything like that, but I don't think I think in the Premier League, in the Prem, if he goes somewhere else as well, I don't think you're going to see much more of much. Is he going to get a little bit better? Yes, but is he going to turn into Cristiano Ronaldo or anything? I don't see that myself. Like, I don't. Not in the Prem. Now, if he goes to Spain, just like Anthony, where you get, like we all talked about, he's got more time to do things. He's got more space to do things. It's not as intense. It's not as pacey as it is. Could he be better? Or just like if you go to Italy, it's not as pacey. It's not as intense as high pressure, high pressing. Could he do better? Yeah, but I mean, I just don't think. I think I would see if we could sell him at that point, and I agree with Osimhen at that point because I think we get the pure profit on that, and then we look at it. Now, so at that, I agree. That's why at the top of the hour or at the top of it, I said we should be going for Osimhen as long as if the wages and everything makes sense. We have to take that into account. That's the big thing. So because we need, and I agree, we need a clinical striker. I mean, I'll be honest, we should be going all out for Yorker until he literally comes out in the press and says, "I do not want to play there because you don't have Champions League football."
I have a sneaky suspicion if we get Champions League football, we're going to go for him. I've had that feeling for weeks and weeks now, and I could very easily see, because we know he's been heavily linked with Arsenal at the moment. I could see Ollie Watkins go to Arsenal because he's a huge Arsenal fan. Then all of a sudden, Jokeris United could be back on.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. I've not read anything that's ever said that Yorker has come out and said, "I don't want to go to United if they don't have I don't want to go to a team that doesn't have Champions League football." That's never come out. That's just a presumption at that point. So.
Well, Dispatch here, Chris, while you're talking about Dispatch says an interesting one. How much do you think there actually is or how money with the board if we are in Europe and if we are without Europe? Do you think there's going to be massive differences? We know it can be worth up to 100 million to be in the Champions League.
I think you're looking at somewhere between without it, you're looking at about 100 to 120 without sales, like without any sales, and everything like that. And then with it, you're more in the 160 to 180 range at that point, I think.
And Sir Jim Ratcliffe, didn't he say as well that we've got to write a check for 90 million before we even sign anybody this summer? And that's to do with previous signings.
Well, okay. I mean, I'm under the impression that no matter what, United has around 200 million to spend in transfers. Now, if you want to take the 90 off that 200, and that leaves us with, 110 to spend this summer, and then if we get Champions League football, now we're back up in the 190. If it's 80 million, roughly, let's just say it's 80 million, then you're back up in the 190 area. That's the way I'm looking at it at that point. So, but I think the one thing that Ineos does well is that they know how to tailor deals to fit a budget, meaning they're not going to go out and splash, just throw 60. They'll pay a little bit more, but they'll break it up into 5 years of, 12 million here, 12 million, 12 million, 12 million if it's 60 million, where, if that means they have to pay 70 and spread it out, they'll rather pay 70 and spread it out and not pay 62 and say lump sum.
That's probably what they're going to do with Cunha because by all accounts, Wolves are open to installments as well. You know what I mean?
And I get that. And I think that's why you're looking at players, and I hate to say it this way, players on a budget, meaning, you're looking for, let's be honest. If Delap is somewhere between 25 and 30 million, release clause because they got relegated, I think his price went way down. I would be looking to buy him anyways, but not to lead our line at that point. Like I would love to have him in the squad, but I wouldn't want him to lead the line so that we, in the chance that we ruin him. Because, there's too much pressure at that point. But I think it's a good buy. But I would still say we need a clinical striker. But because I think his age and what he's done in the Prem already for Ipswich, I think that's a plus. But not to lead our line.
Yeah, and look, D is saying in the chat here as well, he's saying we absolutely do not have 200 million to freely spend because we have operating costs to come out of that, and wages and lease and maintenance, etc. We've got around 50 to 65 million to openly spend. But I would say as well, if you're looking at Cunha, and David Ornstein has said this, pretty straight up, he said United's deals for Cunha and Delap do not are not dependent on whether we get European football or not, or sales. So that kind of money is in the bag. So you're probably talking around the 90 million mark. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think the rest will probably be generated with sales. But we went through the sales before a few weeks ago, didn't we? If you're talking 40 for Rashford, there's talks of 40 million for Anthony now, considering how well he's doing. Is it 25 for Sancho? I mean, that's over 100 million straight away. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I do think there will be money. Say that again.
There's your top class striker and your number 10.
Yeah,
and exactly. that's why I think that the idea that it's come out to Osimhen is the deal's never been on or anything like that, because I really think that's a late in the window thing, because I think they're going to look for the sales first, and then maybe they'll go in for him at that point. And then
there's nothing more now that would annoy me, right, than seeing fucking Anthony on preseason tour in America, or Rashford or Sancho, because we can't get deals done. You know what I mean? Look, I do think we will get deals. Look, it's not realistic to think that we will get every player in before we go on preseason tour, but we've got to give Ruben Amorim the best chance at a good start to this season.
I mean, I heard a couple of weeks ago a name that popped up, which I wanted 3 years ago, was Patrick Schick from Leverkusen, who's around the age of Ollie Watkins, which he's a big, tall, he's Chris Wood type striker, and because they were talking to him about 25 to 30 million for him because of his age and stuff like that. So if you went out and bought Delap and you got a Schick to go with him, that's good. It's not great. Don't get me wrong. I still want Osimhen, and everything like that. But, there's a lot of, I think there's, with all the doom and gloom and everything like that, I think there's a lot that can be done. It's just a matter of going back to what you were talking about earlier, Jack, the Ineos strategy. Would we even buy someone that's 27 or 28?
Yeah, 100%. And Edwin makes a good point as well that we're probably skipping over. He mentions Lindelof and Eriksson leaving, which frees up around 15 million a year in wages. We do have to take wages into consideration as well. If Rashford, Sancho, Anthony goes, it does free up an awful lot of money that, you
and
can
Evans and Heaton are going as well.
Exactly. Evans should never go. He should be given a lifetime contract, in my opinion. Great centre half ever. But lads, I want to move it on a little bit, and I want to talk about maybe some of the youth, because we've heard some reports over the last couple of days. Mastantuono is coming out of. Did I get that right?
What's his name?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'm very proud.
You've been practicing. You've been practicing.
I have been. Well, I practiced because I mentioned it like 6 times in a row last night on the live, and I got it right live. So, and then there's another one, Enzo Cana Biik, who is a young player coming out of France, who United are looking at as well. Now, I don't know an awful lot about the second one, but Mastantuono, we spoke about last night, and his stats look really, really good, in fairness, and Network Scout are giving him a 10 out of 10 world-class potential. Plays in the right of the 2 10s, maybe. He's a left footer. But I want to ask, maybe, Oisín, I'll go to you first on this. Vivela's come in, and he is now the new, head of recruitment. And we know this guy, has an awful lot of experience about finding these young players. Now, Mastantuono, I think he's got a release clause of about 35 million euros, which isn't cheap for a 17-year-old. But how impressed have you been with, and again, look, it's still early doors, with the new board and the kind of deals we're trying to do behind the scenes. But how impressed have you been with, us going out and finding these players and just being linked with them, I suppose?
Well, there's 2 that are great for 2 one's a big reason, one's a kind of more personal reason. We got Heaven and Cheeto for small money, but from Arsenal, which is the personal thing, is great, I think it's all well and good buying 17, 18-year-olds. That's great. but we don't have time to wait for them to mature. You know, we don't, and we spoke earlier in an earlier pod about maybe the business model of Ineos is going to be buy them 17, 18, mature them, 21, 22, sell them for big profit, and then you go out and you buy your bigger players, more established players. I still think that might be some of it with some of the players, but not all of them. Look, it's all well and good looking for the youth out there, and we do have to build for the future. But we also think about right now and where we are and where we want to be. And if you parachuted 4 17, 18-year-olds into this squad, we'll be relegated next year.
Yeah.
That's the way it is. We need some experience in there with the kids. I know a Liverpool centre-half once said with nothing but kids, but those kids had a team behind them, Steve Bruce, Pallister, Irwin, Keane, battle hard.
And there's a reason why it's only ever been done once in history.
Exactly. We don't have those players now to complement the kids. You know, we've Mazraoui's come in, Delap come in. They've had 1 year in the Premier League. I can't see Garnacho being one to take an under 17, a 17-year-old under his wing because he's 2 years older than him. Okay, he's got 2 kids, but he's still only 2 years older than him. He's not going to be able to show him. You know what I mean? Same with Manu. So I think I saw a comment come up there on the live. There's no point having paraphrasing. There's no point having all the apprentices without someone to teach them. And I agree with that completely. So I do think we need, as well as building for the future, we have to build for right now too. You know, and I think considering we could possibly finish 17th, I think that should be alarm bells ringing for Ineos. That if you parachute 17-year-olds in there, they're not going to get us up to Champions League or Europa League. We need experience in there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Ben, I mean, there is players coming in the summer already. The likes of, oh God, I'm after forgetting the left back's name.
Diego Leon.
Leon. You know, and obviously Ben or Osimhen mentioned, you know, Cheeto and Heaven coming in. How long do you think we can not that we can afford to give Ineos, but how long do you think Ineos can realistically have before we've got to start improving? We've got, you know, is it as cut and dry as saying we've got to challenge for top 4 next season, or is it another season where you go right? We get 1 or 2, you know, players in, and then you continue to build, and you can see some progress. Or, you know, again, I go back and worry about Ruben Amorim because I do think he's the man for the job. What's your thoughts on getting that balance right?
We're not going to get it next season, are we? We've always said it from the start since we've been talking, as long as we see improvement. And at the minute, buying youth's not going to improve us, is it? That conversation you just had, we've got to go and look at the squad now. Ineos need to look at the squad tomorrow and think, right, we need a striker, we need a number 10, we need experience in this side.
Yeah.
And then get the youth in.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
you
know, go on, Chris.
Well, I just sent, I don't know if you can pull it up, but I just sent you some from Yahoo Sports that Biek has agreed to terms because he's on a free. And that he's already, that they're already going to send him to Lucerne, who is another Ineos club.
Correct.
And everything like that. So he's going to come in and he's going to go out. And I mean, I looked at some of the, like, you know, YouTube, the highlights of him. He's very Cheeto-esque. I mean, I don't think he's as good, but he's built like him. You know,
he's a striker, and correct me saying that, yeah? Yeah,
he's a striker, tall, little. I mean, he's 18 years old, so he's lanky, kind of like Cheeto and everything like that. Doesn't have his man body yet or anything like that. So, but they're already having plans to send him out on loan. He's going out to the other Ineos club and everything like that. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to like a deal like this. That's great. Like, because that doesn't really impact, you know, any of our first team or anything like that. But like Ben said, we have to impact our first team. And if it's Delap and Cunha, we're going to be challenging for 8th at best at that point. I mean, I'm just trying to be realistic. Now, is that what I want?
I just envisioned doing 38 more fucking watch-alongs in the league next year. And we're challenging for 8th.
I mean, let's be honest though, but we're going to, I mean, do you think we would have been better? I mean, I think we would have been probably, I'm gonna be nice and say if Ahmed stayed healthy, we'd probably be somewhere 11th to 9th because I think Ahmed offers that much more to our attack. I'm just being optimistic, but that's I don't think we'd be as bad as we are now because we can't score goals because Ahmad was scoring goals for us. I mean, it wasn't at a clip that
40% of our goals scored.
Yeah, and I'm like, and I think we're missing out on that. And then I think a whole preseason with Amarin in the system and getting a guy squared away. I mean, I think we're gonna be, we're gonna be 8th or 10th, between 8th and 10th. But that's not to say that we could get somehow. We get some good bounces here. We could be higher at that point, but we can't. I can't sit there and say I'm going to be happy with Cunha and Delap, and then be like, "Oh, we're going to be challenging for Europe." We're not. It's just let's just be honest. So, I mean, there's got to be something else that we're missing, or we just hasn't been reported.
Do you know what's very annoying is that we're getting all of these young players in that need experience, and some experienced players in there to put their arm around them, and only a couple of years ago we had Cavani, we had Ibrahimovic, you know what I mean? And we were giving out that we were signing these, and even Mason Greenwood back then. I mean, I seen a clip online yesterday on some of the goals that Mason Greenwood scored. And when you look at what he was doing in comparison to what Highland is doing now, I mean, it's just night and day. I'm in no way advocating for Greenwood to come back. But my point being is that we've struggled over the last 10 years to get the balance right. And I think that's going to be, Chris, a big issue for Ineos over the next few transfer windows.
No, but I mean, I think that, like what we talked about, Lindelof and Eriksson going out frees up, like, was it D said 15 million in wages, Rashford, Sancho going out. That's, I don't even, the math on between the two of them. What is that, like 500 million?
Yeah, it's something
500 million a week that we're freeing up between the two of them. And then
500,000
or 500,000, sorry, 500,000 a week that we're freeing up. But I mean, the problem is that, there's gonna, I think we're looking at this too micro and not macro, meaning like we're looking at it that Cunha and Delap will be early signings, and that's great. But then the macro version is what's coming in after that, and I think that's where we kind of have to look at it and try to be optimistic. I know it's hard, but try to be optimistic and say, where do we go after that? Are we going after another holding midfielder? Does Casemiro stay? Because that's the other question. Does he stay or does he go?
I don't think he stays on the money he's on. I can't see it.
Okay, so if he goes, then then we have to buy someone for that position, or unless Bruno's going to play there. But I still think we need somebody else there, and maybe a less expensive option at that point. Maybe you could bring. There's
talks of Ederson, isn't there, from Atalanta?
They're going to rake us over the coals again. They always do. If you think about it, everybody says, and I've listened to other pundits and stuff like that. They're like, "Oh, well, we have a good working relationship with Atalanta." Yes, because we give them whatever they want. Like we spent 35 million on Ahmad when he was 17. Look what they did to us. Yes, worth every penny. But look what they did to us with Højlund. Yeah. We gave them what they wanted for Højlund. So they're talking about 60 plus for Ederson, which I like Ederson. He's a good player. He's a very good player, and I'd be happy if we got him, but that's a good chunk of change right there, and I'm like, but I think we need to look at it as a little bit more macro than not micro, because I think the one thing I can say positive is that if it's true that the two, let's just say we go down that road and it's Cunha and Delap, and they're signed at the beginning of the window and they're here, we haven't done that in how long?
Yeah.
We may not love the fact that we have that those are the two signed. We didn't get Osimhen or we didn't get, but at that point, we've signed two players that are going to make an impact to our team at the beginning of the window, to be in preseason, to be in the squad at the beginning, and not 2 weeks into the season. Here comes Casemiro walking out, going, "Hey, I'm coming to save us," and and everything like that. Like, I think it's an important thing to look at that, and we have to be positive if it does happen. that we sign them once the window opens up.
And you know what? I think we will. To be honest with you, I think Cunha could be announced the second the season's over, and I think probably we'll see an awful lot of movement on Delap as soon as Ipswich are mathematically relegated as well, because we'll
I
know
thought they already did.
Yeah, they're gone. They're gone. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, they got losing to Arsenal. They got sent down.
All right, okay. Well, then that's probably why we're seeing some more talk of it. But guys, look, before we finish up, I want to talk a little bit about the league between now and the end of the season. Obviously, look, great night the other night, Thursday night, but of course, Wolves was a disappointing, I suppose, follow-up is the easiest way of putting it. But Oisín, I want to ask you, I'll ask you first, you know, the balance between playing the kids now between the end of the season and, you know, keeping players fresh for the Europa League. And look, the Europa League is it a week tomorrow?
A week tomorrow, yeah.
Week tomorrow, yeah. So there's not an awful lot of time between it. What do you reckon? Obviously, look, you don't want to be just tossing off the league. You really don't. And I know it's done and dusted. We can't get relegated and so on and so forth. But what do you think is the right balance between playing some of the kids? Because Amas and Fredrickson had a good game the other night.
Fredrickson had a fantastic game. Amas had a great game. In that order, I thought Fredrickson played better of the two.
Yeah,
I think the next 3 league games will be returning players getting minutes. So hopefully Mount starting.
Shaw,
and say again,
Shaw
perhaps. Even though Shaw was protected against Wolves for some reason. I mean, he's played 7 minutes in the last 2 years, and he was protected for some unknown reason. And I think we'll balance it up between returning players, 1 or 2 key players, just to keep them sharp, and then kids, and then depending how the Bilbao games go, I think the last 2 games of the season could just be all kids, the same way that Mourinho did a couple of years ago. I think no matter what way it goes, if we qualify for the final or don't, I think the last 2 games will be all kids. He'll give the guys who've been playing all season an early summer and kind of rest them out or drip feed them out and bring the kids in. And
don't forget, we're going to Singapore or somewhere like that. Is it straight away?
Singapore.
Yeah, so 2 days after the season, we're going to Singapore. Then a day after that, we're going to Hong Kong. I mean, that's just madness. So if we do get to the final, we're going to be the 21st. We're going to be in Bilbao. Then we go straight back to Birmingham. And then we go straight from Birmingham that night to Singapore. And from Singapore to Hong Kong. That's a topic for another night's work. But I think that the next few games, don't expect anything too crazy. You know, I think United are happy enough where they are. They can't get relegated. So the game on Sunday had that feel about it. Both teams knew they were safe. And it was like they were just trying to get through it without getting injured. You know, I don't think either teams really tried. Looking back, I think there was 3 shots on target, and Wolves scored 1 of those. You know,
I think they only had 1, and they scored 1.
You did, yeah. But I'm talking about combined both teams.
Oh yeah.
You know, I mean, most of that game was back across the pitch from both sides when they had possession. There was no one really going in front. I think that's going to be. What have we got? 4 games left? 5 games left?
4 games too many.
Yeah, I think. Look, I caveat that with we've got Chelsea, and I hope they go out and kick lumps out of Chelsea and actually try for that game.
Yeah,
you know,
and just don't get Sancho injured, because then they'll just send him back to us.
Well, they're sending it back. But the plus of that is we're getting paid to take him back, and then we'll sell him, so it's double bubble.
Maybe.
You know?
Yeah, maybe.
Hey, look at my username again, Mr. Positivity. Got to keep it all up for the end of the season. Got use those positive vibes, man.
There we go.
There it is.
How to get the 4-4-2 in, though. The 4-4-2 remains.
That'll never leave. But look, that's my thoughts. It'll be kind of not a patchwork team, but it won't be as balanced as what we'd hope.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you'll see. I mean, I agree with Oisín. There's going to be a lot of kids playing and stuff like that, because I mean, Ruben knows against Bilbao, we're going to have to play Ahmad. I think you're going to see Ahmad for a little bit on Sunday if I've heard that he's going to be fit and he's going to be on the bench. So I think you see him for maybe 15 minutes in that game against Bournemouth at that point, because then you get him ready to go on Thursday and play in Spain, and then all of our eggs are in the Europe basket at this moment, and I think everybody knows that, and that's the way that one's going to run. To go to the Wolves game, they had one shot, they scored on a free kick, and I mean it was a painful game to watch. We all know that, but we had our chances and we squandered them like we always do the whole season. Like Mount had one, a couple, the other guys had one. I mean, Hoyland, like Osimhen pointed out, Hoyland was a step slow on a ball that's coming across, sliding that Garnacho put across the goal mouth and everything like that. So, I mean, the thing is about our transfers, going forward is that, maybe we can get someone that's going to put us on the front foot because, maybe we get a goal early. And if we get a goal early in that game, the Wolves game changes 100%.
Yeah.
And that's just been we haven't had that lucky bounce of we're going to get one and then let's see how we do, because we've shored ourselves up defensively, even, and everything like that. And then, it's just, but we just have to, we have to attack. But I mean, I don't think there's going to be much in the last 3 games. Like even the Chelsea game, I don't think so. I think we should still go for him.
It's going to be brilliant. So for people who are listening back to this, it was a comment coming up saying Chris hasn't mentioned Turkey in 30 minutes. It's going to be brilliant if we actually do sign him. You know what I mean? It really is, and I hope we do on the basis that you get to mention him more and an ID. Wouldn't it be great if Turkey came in and he by Christmas he had like 17 goals or something like that? You know what I mean?
Well, I don't know if he's going to score that many, but I just think. If you look at him, honestly, he's a younger version of Cunha, to be honest, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, because he's only 21. Everybody doesn't want to realize that he's only 21 years of age. I think he's that younger attitude midfielder, because the one thing you watched against us, he puts himself in the right positions. Like, he got an opportunistic goal, but he followed the shot on Onana. How many of our players do that? Not any of them. And then the shot that he scored, before he went off, I mean, he took a touch and buried it. Like, there was no hesitation in him whatsoever. His feet were sorted. Everything was good. And that's the kind of player that we're looking for at that point. And that's...
Anyone else think he looks a little bit like a younger Chris?
Oh, easy. I can't do that. I can't do that at all. I'd have to glue it on. I'd have to steal some from Ben and glue it on to do that,
Right. We're getting sidetracked. Let's finish the podcast now before we end up talking about Supermax or something like that. But lads, look, I appreciate you coming on as always. Are we playing Sunday this week?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
we put Bournemouth on Sunday.
I'm away on a golf trip, so I'm not 100% sure whether
away on a golf trip.
Yeah, we're going Friday and we're back Sunday. So,
but earlier I meant to point this out that I heard a bet coming, because if Delap scores 30 goals for us this season, Jack's going to shave his head.
I love the way you just come up with these random bets that I never agree on. You know what I mean? It's just because you're losing your fucking hair doesn't mean I have to as well.
Well, I'm just saying it. I mean, you're the one who's sitting there saying that you're going to, if he comes in and scores 30, we'll go there,
Yeah, all right. Yeah. Good one.
So you agree?
I do, and my arse agree. Look at this head. The nicest hairline you will ever see. I am not. I shaved my head over. I shaved my head in the last.
What's that?
I said his would grow back. That's not much of a challenge.
I get it.
That is something he's stuck with.
You got to hold on for as long as possible.
I tell you what, if he scores,
you guys forget that I'm the oldest one here.
I tell you what we'll do. If he comes in and he scores 30 goals, how about ye grow hair?
I'll try. I'll grow an Osimhen beard.
All right, there we go. Right, let's leave it there, boys. I appreciate it as always, and look, let's see what happens, and I'm sure I'll chat to you at some stage during the week. But if not, the lads will be back as always next week. Boys, thanks for joining, and I'll talk to you during the week.
Sir.
Catch
Take
you
it easy.
later.
Thanks everybody for joining as well, guys. Please do smash a like on the video if you haven't done so already. Subscribe if you are new to the channel as well. Anybody listening back to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please do give us a 5-star review. It helps out the podcast an awful lot. I do appreciate it. It's going to be a busy couple of weeks and months for Manchester United. So stay tuned. Plenty of content coming. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening, guys. Have a great night and I'll chat to you over the weekend. Take it easy.